Now, the interview does not begin when the reporter asks the first question. There are many things that you can do that you should do in advance. First, you want to learn about the interviewer. Try and find out as much as you can about them. Read their column, watch their program, listen to the program, check out the website. This is going to give you helpful information in terms of bias and style. This could be very helpful to you. You can check with your communications person. You can also check with a colleague who may have had a previous opportunity with this individual. Ask them, how was it? Straightforward? Anything I should look out for? Eliminate the uncertainty, and you'd be surprised how much your confidence levels will go up. Next, you want to understand the format. There are real differences between interviews, not only between print and broadcast, but between different types of broadcast interviews, those that are edited, those that are not edited, those that run live. There are also differences between mainstream media and specialty media, or the trades. It's critical to understand the format. It will allow you to prepare properly and answer properly. And if you can make some effort to adapt to that format, it's one way that you can retain some control. So let's talk a little bit about these formats. First of all, is it print, either traditional or web-based, or is it broadcast? While the general rules hold across the board, with print, you have the luxury of time. You can give slightly longer answers. You can give a little bit more background, a little bit more of an explanation, a little bit more context. And while you never want to ramble, you don't have to be as brief as you should be for broadcast interviews. Also, for broadcast, you need to remember to use numbers sparingly and strategically. With print, where people can read and reread the numbers, and sometimes the print publication will draw a chart, a graph, you'll have those exploding pies in different colors. You know, people have the time to figure it out. Whereas in broadcast, if you use a number, people have to get that as it's flying past them. So you don't want to use too many numbers, it's confusing. And whatever you do, don't make people do math. Often people tell me that they don't mind doing print interviews. They find it easier. It's often just over the phone. What they don't like is broadcast because they don't like the equipment. They don't like the microphones and the lights and the cameras. They feel it's too quick. There's just too much pressure. And I can see that. I can understand that. But if it's control you're after, you kind of have it a little bit backwards. Just think about it. In broadcast, as far as your interview is concerned, all they can really use is the raw material that you provide them with. Whereas in print, they have more control from the get-go because they're writing the story. They're paraphrasing everything that you have to say. So let's hope that you haven't confused them. Let's hope that you haven't led them down the wrong path. The onus is on you to be very careful, to be very precise, and not leave any holes, because you may not like the way that those holes are interpreted. Now, if it's print to print, is it face-to-face? Are you with the person, or is it over the telephone? Well, as soon as it becomes face-to-face, you can no longer use your notes in the same way to support you, and realize that that reporter can now describe you and your tone in their story. Let's talk a little bit more about broadcast. I would suggest that you should prepare differently and answer differently, even if the questions are exactly the same. If you're doing, let's say, an 8-minute studio interview at your local TV station versus the kind of interview where really it's a radio update and all the reporter wants is maybe 15 seconds, because really there's no time for anything more than bare bones and in a nutshell. In broadcast, the biggest difference is between what are called studio interviews and what many people call news-style interviews. Now, studio interviews can be done for radio, for television, or for the internet. They can be done in person, or they can be done remotely, over the phone, by satellite, by Skype. Now, what distinguishes these interviews is that they're not edited. They'll usually start with a little bit of an introduction, and then everybody hears all of the questions and all of the answers. So your challenge here is to keep your answers relatively brief and allow for the natural back and forth of a conversation. News interviews are different. These are the ones that are edited and usually put into some kind of a package. So these are the ones that are chopped up into little pieces. And here there are quite a few more things that you want to try to keep in mind if you're trying to adapt to the format to retain a little bit more control.